And the last lecture for today will be about the colle system. So here we go. Knight f3, d5. The move order is a little bit different. So let's explain what is our move order going to be. d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, hoping to meet c4 and then choose one of the various possibilities. And white plays e3. This is the so-called colle system. It has been popular for many, many years. It never stopped being comparatively popular. There are some good players, very high-level players like Grandmaster Yusupov, who used to play a lot this colle system in the past. Black has several ways to play against it. I decided to suggest, because the problem with the colle is that White has, it is a flexible system. White has, as we have already explained, White has several ways to develop his pieces. And the problem is what to do against each one of them. He stays very flexible. So let us first study this game. Now, I decided to suggest some very double-edged positions. So here we go. d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, e3. As always in chess, unfortunately, the best way to play with black against a d4 opening is to play sooner or later the move d5, get something very solid, objectively equal or slightly worse for black, very solid with limited winning chances, but very solid, hoping to make a draw, blah, 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 and play for a win with white next day. However, this is exactly the way of playing that I don't like at all. That's why I prefer, in most cases, to play and to teach double-edged systems with black, which give winning chances to black, but of course they also increase white's winning chances. I chose the move b6. Another interesting move for black here is c5. Interesting, but objectively maybe a little bit dubious. The idea of this move c5 is that after, let's say, bishop d3, please somebody verify that you can see me and hear me very well, okay? So bishop d3, the idea is to just take on d4, e d4, and we got again this hedgehog position with b6, bishop b2, hoping for bishop f4, which will take us to a London system, or for bishop g5, which will take us to a Torres system. However, this lazy approach is not exactly so good, because if white knows what he is doing, let's suppose we play here. So if white knows what he is doing, he will choose this setup. Now we will go to play our regular d5 move. If we castle, white has d5. So we play this move, d5. This position has been played several times in the history of chess, and it is considered risky for black, because white in this isolated pawn has good attacking chances. And so this is not something that I wanted to suggest. That's why I didn't choose this line c5. One may, I will also mention this line, but one may think, who will know this very detailed move, like to play c4 exactly at this point and not play c3 and bishop f4 and everything? Well, theoretically, it can happen. So that's why I chose another setup. I chose this move b6. Now, white has several moves to develop his pieces, several ways. The most logical is bishop here. What about knight bd2? If he goes knight bd2, we will continue, you will see. We will continue with the same ideas. Actually, this is maybe even a bit premature. With bishop d3, white remains flexible. Later he can play c4, knight c3. He can play b3, bishop b2, and knight bd2. Or he can play knight bd2 and c4 at the same time together. So this is how we are going to play now. Bishop b7. If white goes c4 here in this position, then we will happily give this check. There is another way which is faithful to our repertoire, as you will see. It's this move g6. This is going to be our repertoire, this double fianchetto, which is really double-edged. But in this position, he even allows us to give this check. And now we don't really need any theory here. After knight bd2 or bishop d2, we just take it, castle, and play very simple positions. So here we don't really need that after b6. Yes, if he goes c4, we will give a bishop b4 check. This is a not so good version for white of whatever you can call it, Ninja Indian or Queen's Indian. So a player who plays the colle system will stick to his weapon, main weapon, so he castles. Yes, here we can play d5. Maybe objectively, as always, this is the best move, intending to just develop the pieces. For example, here to play bishop e7 or bishop d6, and castle and be very slightly worse or equal, but with very limited winning chances. That's why I chose a double-edged, risky, but very interesting variation. I chose g6, the double fianchetto. I will explain why. In order to explain the choice, we need to see some games. So here is one important game, just a second. So starting by a different move order, but so soon they reached this version of the colle system, b6, castles, bishop b7, and here. So this is one typical version of the colle system out of so many of them. So here, black took on c4. White can take with the knight, then the position is symmetrical and equal, or he can take with the b pawn, and he took with the b pawn. Now, listen, please pay attention to black's way of thinking. First of all, how should black continue? Here we have already mentioned that yesterday in all these similar positions. By the way, don't try to memorize every move order. This is going to be impossible. Try to think in plans. So, of course, black will play c5. And queen e2 was played. Let's suppose he castles. We will take on d4. And we will put the knight on c6. And we get this nice, playable, unclear position. For example, white can play a move like queen e2. And now, what is our plan, please? Who remembers? Our plan is to play rook e8, bishop f8, g6, bishop g7. We may start with this move. We may even start with which other move? Who remembers, please? I have shown a very interesting idea for black. It wasn't exactly this position, but it was a similar one. So a playable idea is this knight b4. The idea of knight b4 is that now I continue all of my plans with rook here and bishop f8 and g6, but very soon he will be forced to play a3. a3, I go back to c6, and this a3 may be considered that it causes some weaknesses. For example, here we will play bishop f8. And if we manage to do all these things, for example, white plays some moves like this, look, and rook a to d1, I fianchetto the bishop. Now we have secured our king with this bishop on g7. It is good for white that we have all the pieces on the board, but we have secured our king. We can play now such moves. We can play this typical idea, intending to play knight f4 to provoke some weaknesses. Oh, just a second. What is this? Let me get to this position again very fast. So, wait again. c5, we were here. So queen e2, knight b4, bishop g7. One of our plans is to play rook c8 or knight h5. Quite often even this move, knight e7, and put the knight on f5. Here black tends to have a very good position because we have defended ourselves against checkmates, and we are standing very well. For example, he goes here, stepping away of knight f4. We can play such moves, intending knight a5, maybe bishop a6, and we have good counterplay. However, some clever players, after some time, had an interesting thought. Instead of putting the bishop on e7, playing all these b6, bishop b7, castling, look, and a few moves later, play bishop f8, g6, bishop g7. Guess what? They thought to put the bishop on g7 right away, and this would have saved them 2 tempi. Of course, things are not very easy exactly because white remains very flexible. But this is how the idea of the double fianchetto against the colle was born. This is, I repeat, a risky system where we play for win, but we offer winning chances to our opponent by doing so. While if we play d5, it is more solid. So let's check how this game was played by two good Greek players. White has a rating of 2200, black has a rating of 2400. So they played the solid version at c5, queen e2 was played, rook e8, cd4, ed4, bishop f8, and white played rook a to d1. I believe this is a good setup for white. He should put his rook a to d1 and his rook f to e1, hoping to play in the center and to attack. This putting the rook here and on d1, the other rook on d1, this means that white wants to play on the queen side, but I believe his chances lie on the king side and in the center. Finally, black put the knight on c6. If you remember, playing this move cannot be called really a mistake, but the knight is very passive there. The knight on d7 is controlling important squares, but it can never move. It must stay there for several moves. On the other hand, with a knight on d7, such advances hardly ever make sense. While if we put the knight on c6, and we miscalculate something, we may run into such an idea at some moment, opening up both bishops. So bishop b1 was played, white is parking the bishop, and black goes g6. Already black has a very satisfactory game. For example, queen e3, this is a typical idea. Bishop g7, black wants to play rook c8, knight h5, knight e7. These are going to be his next moves. And white plays knight e5. This is a playable move. We can just ignore it and play knight e7. Or quite often we can take it. Here I would like to show you one important idea. Takes one idea which somebody can easily miss. White goes here, ready to play all the complications and everything. But look at this, please. Black is more than happy to capture this knight. Bishop takes e4 is once again what we call a counterintuitive move, because white's bishop will come to e4 with tempo, threatening the rook, threatening bishop c6. However, if we pay a closer look to the position, we will now see that white has some very temporal activity. In fact, this bishop on e4 is not really doing anything. There is absolutely no attack against our king, and we simply want to play such moves, stabilize the position completely, threatening, of course, to win the pawn on e5, and start playing for win. Look, I put this here. The knight is coming here, rook e to d8. I'm not worried about this bishop. This bishop can always come to f8 at a good moment. So look, white doesn't really have an attack or anything, and black is slowly taking over. This position is very good for black, in fact. We will put our knight on c5. We will start exchanging pieces. Let's suppose I play some move. Maybe even this is interesting, but knight c5. Look, I put this here, and white doesn't really know what to do. He doesn't have any attack. His bishop on e2 is terrible. If he goes for g4 and f5, this is very risky. He doesn't have the right to do that because we are very solid on the king side. So black is slowly taking over. I want to take on d1 and exchange the other rook as well. Maybe here, or keep the rooks, maybe play such a move threatening to put the bishop on c5, maybe such moves intending to go queen a4. We start having very good counterplay. So keep in mind this move, bishop takes the knight on e4. Very good. Let's see how they played in this game. Here, and bishop b1, g6, knight e4. If he goes here, this is one of the reasons why we play knight c6. We can actually take this pawn on b4. If you don't see anything concrete, of course we will capture it. For example, he takes it there, queen takes, and I don't see anything for white. I think we are doing great. Okay, so let's see, g6 was played, knight e4, and he took it. The more we exchange pieces, this is good for black. He played bishop g7, and quite possibly he may even play this at some moment. Knight e5 was played, and queen c7. The more we exchange pieces, it's getting better for black. For example, after this, and here, all that is left is weaknesses. White cannot play d5, apparently. So his pawns start becoming weak. The parallel hanging pawns are indeed hanging. Look here and here. Then we will start doubling the rooks on various files, either here or on the d file. And white doesn't have anything for the pawn. White is trying at some moment to play some d5 move, maybe liquidate to an equal endgame or to an endgame with a pawn down with chances for a draw. So the more we exchange pieces, generally, the more it gets better for black. Bishop here. Let's suppose that he plays this move. We can play several moves. We can play queen c7. We can play rook c8. I would like to move the queen away from this rook. Then we can play knight e7. Next move, and here we will always consider bishop takes f3. And black is already doing very well. Let's check how they played. After exchanging pieces, white doesn't really know what to do. He played knight e5, queen here, and f4. On one hand, this f4 was played in order to strengthen this knight on e5. On the other hand, long term, this f4 is a huge weakness. If somehow black manages to exchange some pieces and get rid of the pressure on these f4, d4 pawns are going to be very weak. He took on e5 after serious calculation. And bishop takes b7. What is happening after this? After this, black will simply take here, and he will win this pawn. For example, here, threatening this, and queen c7. Maybe he can put the bishop on d6, but this is not enough. Black still has a pawn up. Maybe here, black is still a pawn up with not enough compensation. So knight takes. He took on b7. What else can be played? If he takes with a d pawn, then black is simply better. We will capture this one and play here. Maybe even to c8. Maybe even to c8. So All that is left is weaknesses. And don't forget, in the end game, this bishop will happily come here. So after taking on e5, white took here intermediate move, and black calculated this nice idea, queen takes c4. Let's see now. Bishop a6. If he takes here, good calculation. He takes on b2, and if rook d2, we take here and d4 is hanging. Very good calculation. And here, rook c8, rook c1, bishop takes, and knight d3, black will win. So for this reason, after this deep calculation, because as you can clearly see, what matters in chess is calculation. The rest are much less important. So knight c6, yes, indeed, the colle system is really very good for us, but far more useful is to calculate knight d4, an intermediate move threatening knight d2 check, resulting in an easily winning endgame. Here already white resigned the game. Save, yes, okay. Let us now check another game by the big guys. This is the game, a Bleach game, Botvinnik Memorial 2001, between Kramnik with the white pieces and Garry Kasparov with the black pieces. Let's see what happened here, starting from one of the various different move orders. Here, d5, and here. For the moment, we are not studying theory, concrete theory. We are studying typical ideas inside that, which are very similar to our theory. Very, very similar. So here, Kasparov played knight c6, and at some moment he will take on c4 and he will put the bishop on g7. What we will be trying to do is to have the bishop already developed here, and this way we are saving two tempi, at least two tempi. So queen e2 was played. Let's see, let's get a good idea. Rook e8. For the moment, there is no threat of c5, so Kasparov doesn't take on c4. Bishop f8. Here, g6, and bishop g7. How about c5 now? No, it doesn't really work. After c5, we can take it, and e5. Black stands much better here since white cannot take on e5. Another playable and typical idea after c5 is this. Knight d7. And white is not in position to play b4. So he has to take, and queen takes, and again, black is much better. For example, after this move, who will suggest how should black continue here, please? I see two very interesting moves, and I cannot decide between the two moves that you are suggesting. One move is this, the so-called mini minority attack, intending a4, and the other idea is this, and capture this knight on f1. Both ideas seem to be very interesting. Let's see how they played. So knight e5, rook c8. This was a good moment to capture on c4. He played rook c8, knight d7, carefully, not to allow c5. And indeed, after taking here and c5, black will take it. And again, he will play e5, and he stands very well. So let's see. Knight g4. h5, he goes back. Knight e7, protecting everything. Knight f6 again, moving back and forth. Very long maneuvering game. Knight e4, ingenious idea, and black in this game never got to take on c4 after all. But Kasparov has other dynamic features here. So they played back and forth. Black stands very well. This knight on e5 is problematic. And later, Kasparov won this game. Let us check now another game in the typical strategy before we start entering our various theoretical versions. So here, this is not going to be our line, opening line, but black stands very well. And d5. And rook c8. Here, how to continue here, please? What do you think? There is now absolutely no doubt that we must take on c4. White is ready to play here and b4, and then we will be overrun. We must definitely take on c4. Yes, this is a very big mistake. After here, this is not working, b4. So we take it, b takes, and here, queen d6, this is my game, queen d6. Why did I play queen d6? Which is the correct move? The correct move is this one, intending bishop f8, g6, and bishop g7. Why didn't I play this? The answer is because the game was played in 2009, this Bleach game, and I didn't know that this was the correct plan back then. I played queen d6, which also makes sense. And rook f to d8, and some moves up and down. So how to continue with black here, please? If we understand these positions, then it's going to be much easier to play them. So how to continue with black here? What do you think? I can try to put the bishop on g7, but I believe we have a better plan now. This move is the best now because we have a good chance to exchange minor pieces. This is good for black, and we may even get to put the bishop on f6. So this is even better. He takes it, bishop takes, black is very active. Here, I played queen f4, possibly bishop f6 is even better. Anyway, I put the pieces in good squares. Black stands very well here. And yes, this move, bishop takes e5, is very common. Now white's bishops are bad. And of course, I calculated rook d2 and queen d2. And here my poor opponent blundered the queen, but the position was anyway very difficult. Let's check another game like this. Here is how we will understand the Torres systems, and then the theory is going to be much easier. So I played d5. Generally, this knight bd2, let's say, is a little bit premature. d5 and g6. Yes, it does make sense. This is a clever idea. I want to play bishop g7, castle, and whenever I have the chance to save these two tempi, b3, I played here, and bishop b2. How about bishop a3? After bishop a3, I will play this, intending c5 and castle. So my opponent played here. I castled, queen e2, and c5. Black has a great game. White played knight e5. Possibly this is the correct move. He can give us parallel hanging pawns. And now we can play knight bd7 with good, nice, unclear play. Here with chances for both sides. White played knight e5. How about this move? Look, here we will take it. Possibly he must take with the knight, but again, we are standing very well. If he takes with the pawn, now we can clearly see the difference. How should black continue here, please? It is, I believe, quite easy. We won't give him the chance to take on c5. Let's better take here and now play knight c6. And we have won two tempi. This counts for something, yes? Our plan is again, maybe here, knight h5. I don't even need rook e8 anymore. Knight h5, knight b4, this kind of play. Very good. So he played here, knight bd7, and f4. But this kind of play with f4 is in fact not strategically justified here because black has a very solid position. I played here and I played knight e4. Takes, and black stands quite well. I played f5, intending to take on on e5 maybe later. White's problem is this knight on d2. So black was better. Later, black won the game. Say, okay. Here is another good game by black. Just a second. So this is the game. White has a rating of 2400 and black has a rating with the black pieces is Grandmaster Dennis Wagner with a rating of 2580. So this is from a totally different move order. As you can see, it is very flexible. By various move orders, we can get to these positions. There is a downside here. We would rather have this pawn on a7. The pawn is not doing much on h6, only causing a weakness on b6. However, the plans are the same, obviously. Bishop f8 and g6 and bishop g7. And again, as it seems, white is left without a clear plan. Knight e to g5 is played. Typically, white tries to do something very active, some sacrifices. Knight here and knight e5, rook c7. It is possible that black gave a bit too much of freedom to white. I think he must play back, knight here. Let's suppose we try this move. Okay, this move is not possible, sorry, because he can take it. However, let's suppose that we somehow got to this position. This is important to understand. How should black continue here, please? Let's see. So here, black must take on e5 and take on e4, very good. And regardless of this pawn on h4, which is hanging, white is left with the wrong material. Okay, let's see what happened. They exchanged some pieces. Yes, finally, black solidified his position. He is controlling everything. There is no attack anymore, and white is left with weaknesses. White desperately sacrifices some material. It does make sense, but black had calculated well, and he won the game. Let us check now an even better game. It's this one. So let's see. b6, bishop here, and g6. This is exactly our move order, g6. White has several setups. One of them is b3. Let me show you another one. Of course, we will examine this thoroughly. The best setup for white is to play with c4 and knight c3. And here we will reach one very interesting version of a King's Indian. Typically, the computer doesn't like our position because it resembles a King's Indian, but this has been played in many, many games, and black scores very well. This is a very strange King's Indian where both players have committed mistakes. White put his bishop on d3. The bishop doesn't usually go to d3, and he has played e3 to e4 in two moves. Black, on the other hand, put his bishop on b7, which is not ideally placed. Usually we play here and e5 or here and e5. You will see some interesting games in this line. So this is the proposed move order. white played b3, bishop here, bishop b2, castles, and here we kind of tricked white here. This knight bd2 and b3, b2 setup doesn't work well now. We are very well prepared to play against the isolated pawns. Black plays d5. This is good, and even this is very good. Even c5 is very good. He played d5. Let's see here, knight bd7 and queen c2. How about this move, queen c2? No, this is not good move. How would we characterize this move, please? Queen c2, a mistake. How would we call it? The question is, why is this move a mistake? Because it is a non-standard move. Every opening has its standard moves. In the colle system, the queen does not belong to c2. How do we punish non-standard moves? Who will explain to us, please? Do we do something magical? How do we punish non-standard moves? By playing standard moves, by playing typical moves, unless his non-standard move is a blunder that is losing material. So by playing standard moves and nothing magical, the non-standard move by itself will appear weak. So this move was played rook c8, and we play c5. Yes, we could also play this move. This move is also acceptable. I think white should not take with the pawn because of c5. White should take with the bishop. If he takes with the knight, we will seriously consider this move to take here and now play c5. White may think that he has the pair of bishops, but this is only temporary because our bishop on g7 will neutralize the dark square bishop, and at some moment we will exchange them. So dc4 also makes sense, and c5 also makes sense. Here, and rook c8. And white played queen b1. See what happens now. Because white played a mistake, queen c2, then after the move rook c8, he has started having some tactical problems. So he put his queen on b1, but the queen is decentralized on b1. Black played queen e7. Possibly this is a better. Just take here. And now, for example, who will suggest? I see some very good move for black here. dc4, not really, because I can play this even better, even later. So which move, please? I see a very good move for black. Very good move for black. No, the knight cannot go to e4. We lose a pawn. The move is, look at this move, knight h5. This is the move. Don't worry. Don't be afraid if you make mistakes. Of course, you will make mistakes. That's why we are here for. Yes, we proudly, happily suggest moves. Sometimes we get them right. Sometimes we get them wrong. So knight h5, intending knight f4. And we will be very happy if we provoke such a move to take here finally and play some flexible moves like this. Yes, our only problem is this knight. I may even consider putting it back and then back to c6. We have very good play. So let's see how they continued. Queen e7, rook e1. Finally, he took, and he placed his pieces here. And black stands very well, as it seems. Knight to f6, this is good to exchange some pieces. And bishop takes, that's very well played. Bishop e2, you see, white's center is collapsing. If he plays here, he is losing the other pawn. Here, the knight goes to f4, of course, and we take on f3, and he took on c4, and this is really completely lost. White lost after a few more moves. Let's check now this game. So white has a rating of close to 2100, and black close to 2300. All kinds of move orders, I repeat. Don't try to memorize, it's impossible. He can play here first. He can play b3. He can play c4 and knight c3, c4 and knight bd2, or just castle first. Our plan is this: g6, b3, bishop here, bishop b2, castles, and we have a very satisfactory position. He played c4. After this c4, look, this is another setup. We can play two good moves. One good move is this, of course. And at some moment, we want to take on c4 and play c5. By the way, if he takes here, what do you think? That's a difficult question. Bishop takes, pawn takes, or knight takes? What do you think? Which is the correct move for black here? Let's see. So the correct move for black is knight takes d5. This move is not good here. This move is good when we have, please learn this thing, when we have the bishop in this diagonal, either here or here, then e5 is good. Now this bishop is totally misplaced. White plays such ideas here, and he has some very annoying plans with this minority attack. And here, why? Because our bishop on g7 is misplaced. We don't have attack against his king. The correct move is to take with the knight. And here we have some sort of Greenfeld. e4 is not possible. And our plan is either c5, knight c6, or maybe even here and c5 with very good play for black. Very, very good play. Let me give an example. Here, I take it, he takes it, c5, queen e2, knight d7, and here. How should black continue? Let me convince you. How should black continue here, please? Let's see. Black anyway has a good position, but how should he continue? We have already seen such motives in previous lectures on various occasions. Bravo. A very interesting move is this. Taking on f3, and after that, taking on d4 and giving him an isolated pawn. Very good. Okay. So bishop here, castles, c4. We can play d5, but there is also another very nice setup. The setup with d6 and knight bd7, or even c5, knight bd7 and c5, for example, here. This is another very flexible and good position. We can play for e5, just like black did in this game, or we can play c5. We are already, do not expect theory here, we are already long way out of book. At some moment, we may capture and play d5. Yes, even with a slightly less well-placed knight on d7. We may play here d5. We have a fine game. Black played rook e8. Remember, the colle system is something very flexible and very unclear if you want to play for a win. So they got this position, and d5 finally. And by a strange way, d5 and c5, they got to this typical idea. How to take on c5 now, please? Of course, we will take with the knight, and e5, black is better. Another way to play, yes, e5 is the best move. Another way to play is this. And after here, which move, please? After here, very typical strategy. We have already discussed it several times. The move is bishop a6. We need to eliminate this knight and leave white with a powerless bishop on b1 or anywhere else. Very good. In this game, e5 was played even better. C takes and bishop takes. This is exactly what black is hoping for. Then bishop on b1 is really terrible. e4, if he goes knight c4, of course, we will capture this knight. e4, bishop b7, with a clear advantage for black. White must have been thinking, how did I end up this way? I started totally different. Okay, later you will see the whole game, of course. Black won the game. Now, let's go and check some version of the King's Indian. So here we go. An unclear version of the Torre, but a very interesting one. It's this. Castles to stay flexible and g6, intending bishop g7, and then we see. So several ways for him to play. We examine this here. We castle. For example, knight bd2. White has all sorts of moves. Yes, this is the call. He can play c4, queen e2, knight bd2, c4, and knight c3. So he goes here. Black, on the other hand, can also play whatever he likes. So here we can play d5, we can play c5, and we can also play the setup with d6. All these moves are playable. c5 is good, d5 is good, and even d6 is good. c5 with nice play. For example, rook e1. Is this theory? No, not at all. We are out of move. We can play d5. For example, c4, take on d4, take with a pawn, and knight c6, or even take on c4. We already know that this is a bad version for black, for white. And we already know that after this, which is our typical move, please, we have already seen this move once. We cannot play bc5, dc5, and e5. It would have been good, but we cannot. So, which is the way? There is another typical way. Who remembers it, please? Another typical way for black after c5. That's why we allowed c5. After c5, look, the move is knight d7. We are clearly threatening to win a pawn on c5. He cannot control his center. Unfortunately for white, he has to capture here. And how to take, please, with a knight or with a queen? Here is another question. Should we take with a knight or with a queen? What do you think? Or with a pawn? There is an important rule in chess, very deep rule. Listen, please. If, let's say, if our knight was already here many moves ago, this is not a big problem. We will improve the positioning of our knight. But taking the knight to a square from where it doesn't play at all, this is a big problem. I repeat, if our knight was already here, we played a different game and our last move was short castling, this is not a very big problem. But to take our knight on purpose to a square that it doesn't play, this is a big problem. Of course, we will capture with a queen. And black is better. Okay. And now look at this version, please. Let's go right from the start to examine the King's Indian version castles. Yes, we can also play the just d5 here to be very slightly worse or about equal. But I really like this move. Which one is objectively better? d5 is objectively better. Which one will practically give us more winning chances? g6, of course. So look at this King's Indian knight c3. Most players, most colle players will not even do that. They will play b3, bishop b2, knight bd2. And then this setup is wonderful because we may end up in the parallel hanging pawns positions with two extra tempi. So we castle, e4, and d6. This is the King's Indian version. Yes, the computer gives advantages to white left and right, and yet black is scoring quite well from this position. White can play pretty much every move. For example, h3. We can play knight c6, intending e5, maybe even knight bd7. Let's have a look at such a position. For example, he goes here. Look, we play e5, we play knight e7, and we play knight d7. Next move is h6 and f5, not f5 immediately because of knight g5. h6, for example, here, h6 intending f5 with very good play, very nice and clear play. Let's check another move after e4. For example, rook e1. Again, I like knight c6. This move h6 has also been played several times. Knight c6 generally intending e5. For example, here e5, d5, knight e7, and we are slowly preparing the f5 advance. Here, knight d7. Very good. Okay, let us now check some games in this version. Here is one game. This is one game which I played some years ago, a Bleach game. Why is this again a Bleach game? Because not many people play the colle system in standard games. So I played g6 and bishop here and castles and e4, and we reach this position. I played d6, intending to play knight bd7 or knight c6. Queen e2, knight bd7, knight c6 is also playable and good. e5, but this move e5 is not so good. I take it. Actually, an even better move was which one, please? Who will find an even better move? Not who will find another move, who will find an even better move. The correct move is this. I should have played here. Because if he takes with a queen, he is losing a pawn, and he takes like this, and then I will play, for example, knight here. By the way, he goes here. Yes, queen h4 is one move, but which is another very good principal move. Who will suggest this move? Very good principal moves. Generally, we like to play such moves in chess. The move is, of course, c5, destroying his center totally. In the game after e5, I took it. He takes with a knight, and c5. Again, black is doing very well. He takes, I take with a queen. Is this c5 weak? No, because I have here, and I took on c7, and I'm standing very well. Please pay attention to such moves. Queen e5. This is a move from which you have a lot to learn. This is called centralization, as we all know. The queen will not stay there forever, but it is not so easy to kick it away. It will take time. If white goes f4, this f4 is a big weakness. And if he goes, for example, queen f2, then I will go rook a to d8. I have many moves to keep my queen there and possibly create some problems. Learn to play such annoying moves like queen e5. How will I understand that this move tends to be quite good? Because white cannot just kick us out in one or two moves. It will take more moves, unless he plays f4, which is bad. So here, rook a to d8. Look. Here, knight h5. The queen is still on e5, ready to do the damage. Here, and finally, I decentralized my queen, but only after he played g3. Okay, I got a playable position, nothing tremendous, and I won this game in the end. We can check it a little bit. I allowed him to win an exchange. What is the evaluation of this position, I would say unclear, with chances for both sides. I played h5. I would prefer to have the black pieces in a standard game because black has the initiative, some kind of attack. Yes, here he allowed this. I don't know what is happening here. I started moving up and down, and in the end, I won. Okay, let's check another game now. We are checking the King's Indian version of the colle system. I predict that you will not be facing this version a lot. And the reason is that most players who play the colle system preferred with their eyes closed to just play b3, bishop b2, and knight bd2. And our version is really wonderful against knight bd2. So castles g6, c4, bishop g7. Here, Ignaz Theodora is playing with the white pieces, woman grandmaster, and Leon Levic is playing with the black pieces. So e4 and d6. Let's see what happened. h3, knight bd7. White is thinking, she played bishop c2 and e5. We get a practically unclear position. Theoretically, the computer, as always in the King's Indian, likes white. So rook here, finally, black pushed d5, white pushed d5, and a5. The knight will go to c5, and of course, this bishop won't stay here forever. It will go back to c8. Let's see what happened. Rook f8, preparing f5. Yes, h6 and knight h7. On the other hand, it is not so easy for white to play c5. She did play c5, however, but now, after some exchanges, black must take with a knight, so that white will lose her dark square bishop. Okay, some unclear position here, and black found this move. Later, black won the game. Here is another version of the King's Indian. White has a rating of 2200 and black has a rating of 2600. So let's see. G6, very fighting and good. We can also play d5 for more solid chess. So g6, c4. If he plays knight bd2 here, yes, I like d5. We can also play bishop here or d5, d5. Generally, d5 is good after a knight bd2 move. We castle and we get these playable positions. Okay. Is it necessary to play d5? Not at all. We can also play here. How should white continue after that? He has all sorts of ideas, for example, here and bishop here. How should we continue after that? Whatever you think, everything is playable. c5 is playable, d5 is playable, and even d6 is playable. And later we see d6, maybe c5, knight c6, this way of playing. You will remember one thing. Our setup is very good against knight bd2 and b3, bishop b2. Let's see how they played here. So bishop g5, let's play h6. Bishop d2, knight bd7 is playable, knight c6 is also playable, and c5 is also playable. d5 and e5. If you ask a computer here, it always gives big advantages to white, but practical experience says different things. White doesn't have a clear plan here. So knight h5, black has a clear plan to play f5 at some moment. King h7, yes, and knight d7. Look, white will play b4, so what? here. 98, and at some moment he wants to play f5. They are not in a hurry as it seems. And f4, typical King's Indian play. Practically very unclear. How to continue after that? This is a good question. Let's see. He's threatening our knight on c7, yes? I agree with this move, knight f6, because white cannot play a5 here, and because if he takes it, we take with the queen, and again we want to attack. Very good. Of course, let's clarify that without any doubt, if it were black to move here, what should he play, please? This you must understand immediately, no matter if we are talking about a colle system or anything else. What to play here? Of course, we will play a5, stopping white's play, and now we have a free hand on the king side, and we will win. Very good. Okay. When white started playing the colle system in this game, he was definitely not expecting to play a King's Indian after all. You must also count the psychological factor. So 98 and h5, black very skillfully removed all of his pieces, and knight h6 and g4, and later he won the game. Knight f7, very skillful play, preventing all counterplay, and here comes g4. And bishop h6 and rook g8, very skillful play by black. Here, rook g7, and bishop here, bishop g4, very good, powerful play. Very high level game. And what happened here? White either lost on time or resigned. I don't understand. But it says 0-1, black won. Very good. So let's check now this game. White has 2100, black has 2400. So here and g6, c4 here, b3, castles, bishop b2. Once again, when we put our bishop on g7, this version for black, for white, playing b3, bishop b2 is not very successful. Here we can play all three moves. Which are the three moves, please? All three moves are good. It's a matter of choice. We can play d6, we can play c5, we can play d5. All of these three moves are good. d6 was played in the game. But I also have this move, and after taking, not e takes d5, knight takes d5. This is the correct move. If e takes d5, knight c3, white has some advantage. Knight takes d5. Very good. c5 is also good, and after this, we can take it. Yes, he can always take with a knight, with equality, yes? And here we play d5. Of course, he can always take with a knight. Then we play knight c6, and we have an equal position. What will happen after that? Whoever plays better, he will win. So e d4, d5. And here, let's better take this. And now knight c6, and we reached an ideal version of this line with our bishop already on g7 right from the start. Let's see what was played in this game. d6. It also makes perfect sense. And knight b7, and here. And now Both moves, c5 and e5, make a lot of sense. Black played e5. This is interesting. And after this, look at this very clever move. If this was here, I believe black would have played a5, intending knight c5, or maybe knight h5. Here, black played this very clever move. This is a very clever move. He wants to play f5, and white cannot play e4 because of knight f4. He played b4 and f5. Black is now better after this clever move order. And here, and a5, rook takes. Okay, as it seems black was better. Now we cannot calculate for him. We hope he played good moves. Here is another very high level game with the white pieces. It's Ratkovic, the rating of 2400, and Nestorovic with a rating of 2350. Let's check here. So risky play, free play for both sides. He played a4. Yes, even this move is allowed. a4. White can also play this move, queen e2. Absolutely playable. Intending e4. I see three possible moves. This is possible. d5 is absolutely possible here, intending bishop g7, and even c5 is possible. All these moves are playable. So a4, a5, and here, and d6. Let's see what happened. He castles, completely unclear situation, and we are, of course, playing completely for win. Here, rook e8, and e5. I think black is better here because this b3, a4 looks very bad. Here, knight h5 is good, bishop h6 is good, possibly even better. Let's see, b4, of course, we take it. Yes, bishop here, and knight f4. Sometimes in the King's Indian, because this is a King's Indian, we don't attack with pawns. Sometimes we may even attack with pieces. Okay. f5, black got a good game, and he managed to win. h5, very good. Although we haven't played so many moves yet, we are in a totally unclear situation, just like as we have hoped, and we have good counterplay. Let us now check another possible plan by white, an unsuccessful plan by white. So this is the game between the player with the white pieces has a rating of 2230, and with the black pieces, it's the famous Gatakamsky. So let's see, bishop here. Of course, white has several other move orders. For example, here, I will play this. And here, I play g6. And here, I play bishop g7. And here, I can play d5 or ignore it. Let's say I ignore it. He castles. Now, I can play d5. I can play c5. I can also play d6, as we will see now. The last plan with d6 and possibly c5, we will see it now. Let's suppose I chose d5. He can play again 1 million moves. For example, here I take it, and now I'm very happy. c5, I take on d4 immediately, and I put the knight on c6, and we are in familiar ground. We know that our position is good. By the way, if he plays here, who will suggest a good move for black? Actually, wait. Yes, here. This is a good move, knight b4. He plays here, and yes, soon, very soon, he will have to play a3, and we go back to c6. Very good. a3, we go back to c6. This is useful because we can step here, and get good play. So let's see how they played in this game. Here, b6. Bishop d3 here, castles, g6. Bishop here. Our most successful play is after a b3 bishop b2 setup. After a b3 bishop b2 setup, you will remember that our setup with g6 bishop g7 is really very powerful. Black played c5. Usually we castle here and castles. And he played b3. I see b3, I am happy. d6. This is another way for black to play with d6 and c5 and knight c6. Yes. Very clever, very interesting, very unclear. Queen e2 and queen e7. In fact, there are some ideas with playing this move because now we are threatening to take here and knight f4. After this, black may already be better. So here he took on d4 and d5. This is again something similar as we have studied it. Knight takes d5 and rook takes d5. White probably should not take on d5. Okay. What they reached is a more or less equal position, but now black blundered, white blundered. Yes, this is an equal position. Okay. I just wanted to see the very first moves. Let's check again another plan, another game here. So very high level players quite often choose this line, which allows them to play for a win against this annoying little opening. They know very well that they can play all these systems with d5, which are more trustworthy, but very equal. So here, castles. With the black pieces here, it's Grandmaster Iturrizaga Bonelli Eduardo. Quite well-known Grandmaster. He played g6, b3, and when I see b3, I know that black's setup is very successful. So we castle. On the next move, we can play d5, c5, and even d6. White can also play 1 million moves. So d6 was played. d5 is good, and c5 is also good. d5 and c5 can take us to the same position. Look, after c5, if he goes here, he is not at all forced, but if he goes here, we may take it and play d5, and once again, get to these positions. I did it with c5, but with d5, possibly if white wants, I can also do the same. I can take it, and again, we reach the same position. Here it is. Take, knight c6. Okay, d6. Make no mistake, while you are playing these openings, these lines, because these lines are a lot more rare than usual stuff, your opponent will have no idea what to do. He will be playing logical moves, but without a clear plan. So queen e7, black stands very well. dc5, I would have taken with a b pawn, just like he did, in order to break the symmetry. a4 looks like a random move, and knight c6, black stands perfectly. I very much prefer such a position rather than the dull ideas with d5. Somebody may ask, do I have a system against this annoying colle system to be better with black? I had enough. There isn't any. Do I have a system with minimum risk which plays very much for win? There isn't any. There are systems with minimum risk which are playing for draw. And there are systems with more risk like these ones which are playing for win. However, here we are hoping that white will play something passive like this one, and then we play for win with small risk. So e4, rook d8, He can play so many other moves. Black just stands very well. 95. Black was better. And after this, much better. And he won the game. Of course, I'm stopping the games around this point because I want you to see, you will definitely see the games by yourself. How should Black continue here, please? Let's continue for a couple of more moves. I see two good ways of playing. Yes, Black should be much better. One idea is f6 and e5, but look at this very comfortable idea. I don't know what Black played here, but a very good move appears to be bishop takes f3. I always like this concept. Bishop takes f3, and after knight takes f3, e5. He played f6, and and he took here. Okay, this is even better. Yes, but look, never forget to consider this move. Takes, and e5, and we are coming with e4. He goes here. What to play, please? There is no doubt. We will play f5, provoking f3, and now we will play bishop h6. Okay. This was already completely winning. Yes. Here, and Black won the game. Here is another good game. The player with the white pieces is called Kamberovic Senad, with a rating of close to 2300. And with the black pieces, it's Bahadur Jobava. In 2011, his rating was 2704, over 2700. So let's check b6. And here, castles. If he goes c4, of course we can play d5. Of course we can play c5. Of course we can give this check. And we can even play this move, which is risky but playable. So he castles g6. b3, I see b3, I am happy. Here, bishop b2, castles, and knight bd2. Again, all possible moves, or all logical moves are possible. d6, d5, c5. He played d6. Here is another idea. c4, c5, c4, knight c6. A different story instead of taking on d4. And look, what is the plan behind this move? There is a very deep idea hiding behind this move. There is this idea, knight h5. We want now to play f5, very rare stuff, or we want to take on d4 and knight f4. For example, here, white is getting ready after c d4, e d4, and knight f4 to go bishop f1. But we continue with f5. Very, very good play for black. For example, bishop here, queen e7. Even this move is very good. g5, intending g4, or just queen e7 with wonderful play for black. This, of course, is also approved by the computer. So here is this idea with c5. But I repeat, we are only discussing ideas because white is by no means forced to play c4. He can play all kinds of moves here. You can play h3, for example. All kinds of moves. So here, of course, after c4, we all know by now that we can take in d5. But we can also play this. Let's see what Jobava did. So which is the bottom line? What should I play after all? The answer is very clear. Everything that you play is playable, logical, and good. And the same goes for white. He can also play several things. Queen e2. and he played c5. Rook f to d1. Is this theory? Was some of these two players prepared for this position? No, zero chances. He played knight here. According to the computer, black is better at this point if he had played this nice move. Now, if white takes with the pieces, we get a good version of the hedgehog. And if he takes with the e-pawn, here is another nice exercise, black to play and get a small advantage. Should we play d5? The answer is no. If I play d5, white will not play c4. I want to see this move and then I will play d5. So what to play here? That's a difficult exercise. We have this wonderful move, some sort of tactic. We are threatening knight f4. And after this, we have here knight b4. And we will capture this fellow on d3. Okay. This was very difficult to see. Jobava played knight c6, which also makes sense. Look, a3 to stop knight b4. So queen e7, and black got what he wanted, an unclear position with chances for both sides and without theory. Bishop here. If c4, we can take it. Or who remembers the move here, please? Who remembers the very good idea for black? We can take and d5. Yes, this is one, but which is another one? This is another. Knight here. Very good. We are now threatening to take on d4, take and play knight f4. So he goes here, so that after c4, knight f4 is not with tempo. He goes here, and who remembers how to continue here, please? We will go f5. White can hardly move. For example, he plays this to protect this poor bishop. And our main idea, I don't know if it works here, it needs to be calculated. Our main idea is this, intending g4 and nice attacking chances. Okay, let's see how they played. Bishop a6, to me, this looks very random. Rook a here, he takes it, and queen takes. Black has good play. Rook b1 and knight h5. Jobava is feeling these positions very well. After c4, we may even consider other moves here. Maybe this also needs to be considered, or we just take it. And if he takes with a pawn, d5, can he play e5, I wonder? Can he play c5? Here we want to take it. I'm not really afraid of this, because I see some nice idea for black. How should black continue here? We have already seen this several times. Let's see. How should we continue here? The move is, in my view, knight d7. We are threatening to win a pawn, and he cannot play here. What is this? I take here. He cannot capture back with either of the pawns. So he must take here, and remember the rule. If our knight was already here 5 moves ago, this is not a big problem. I will move it. But spending a move to take the knight to a place from where it cannot move, this needs to be avoided. So we take with the queen. Okay, so here black stands very well. Let's check how they played these nice unclear positions. So dc5, he takes here. Remember, a rook on b2 is unnatural. We want to force our opponent to play unnatural moves. And only now he takes. White understands that and he goes back. The position is about equal, but not a draw. Okay. Black started playing some nice combinations, and he was slightly better, as it seems, or much better, and he won the game. Let's check another game, again in the c5, d6, or d6, c5 version. So here, knight c3, castles, e4 is probably the best, and then we play d6, some version of the King's Indian. I see b3, and I'm happy. We can play d6, c5, and d5. Indeed, this is also playable. For example, he takes it, I take with a knight. He plays here, I take on c3, or maybe even c5 immediately. He plays here, I take on c3, he takes it, and I play knight d7. Black has a perfect game. Takes, takes, here, here, bishop e2. We can exchange the queens or put the queen here. This is not equal. This is better for black. We have seen it several times in various versions of the Queen's Indian. If you remember, of the Queen's Gambit, not the Queen's Indian. If you remember, we can even capture this and play here. Even this is quite good for black because this bishop is impotent. Yes, we connect all of these things in our mind and we become very high level players. So here the move d6 was played and the move knight bd7 and queen c2. I would say that this move queen c2 is impractical, and I like bishop takes f3, of course. We have now something in this quiet position, quiet but complicated. We have something now in our hands, these double pawns on f3, and he played c6. Was this preparation? Of course not. Yes, he can play all kinds of moves. This also makes sense. c6 and queen here. Yes, some attacking ideas from here. Okay, and later black won this nice standard game. So that was it. I have included a few more games in the game session. That was the idea about the idea of this colle system. I believe it is very interesting, this b6, bishop b7. And for the last couple of minutes, if you have any questions concerning this lecture or the previous one or anything chess related, I could gladly answer them since we are now done with the colle system. So, who would like to ask some question, and I will happily answer. I will answer one question that I had for several years. Should we play d5? Unfortunately, when we see the move d4 by white, we must play d5 in the first 6 moves. There are countless versions of this, but unfortunately, according to the computers, the best way of playing is to play d5 at some moment, yes, but theoretically the best. Practically the best, that's a different story. I would say d5 is the best for very high level players and professional players. Why are these versions very drawish? Because they are very symmetrical. I'm not saying they are bad, but they are very symmetrical. For example, here and queen here and c5 symmetrical with a tempo less, or this kind of play and f4 very symmetrical. And that's the problem. Yes, for example, here, such moves, white can exchange several pieces at any moment. Look at this. Yes, how to win a position like this. For example, here, how to win it. Yes, it's very difficult. Unfortunately, chess is made this way that because chess is a draw, if you play naturally the best moves, it ends in a draw. As Arthur Yusupov used to say, quite often the best way to play for a win is to pass from an objectively worse position. And he meant exactly this. We play the best moves. Yes, we play the best moves. We play moves like this, and then everything disappears all of a sudden, like this. We are happy that we played the best moves, indeed. And what have we achieved? Absolutely nothing. We cannot win this game with black, even if our opponent is much less good. That's why whenever we have the chance, I choose a little bit more risky variations. I would like to thank you all for participating, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow.